What if Yellowstone National Park was its own Pokémon region? A place like Kitakami or the Isle of Armor, a self-contained corner of the Pokémon world. A land of ancient geology, powerful spirits, and creatures perfectly adapted to one of the most volatile landscapes on Earth. What Pokémon, both familiar and entirely new, might roam its forests, plains, and steaming valleys? And how would we as players go about saving the entire Pokémon world from a ghostly geothermal apocalypse? Well, before we get to all that, our region needs a name. The name Yellowstone itself is already a translation adapted from a name used by the Hidatsa people, a Siouan nation who referred to the river here as Mitsi Adazi, the Yellow Rock River. French trappers in the early 1800s translated the phrase, and eventually the name Yellowstone entered the maps we know today. Now, I am glossing over quite a lot of nuance among the many dialects and languages of the Lakota-speaking peoples, but in some of them, a particular word appears that caught my attention. Mazazi, a word meaning gold, which ultimately is just a shiny yellow rock, though one with a lot of value and spiritual significance. In fact, Yellowstone once had a gold rush of its own. Even today, gold still lies beneath its ground, though the land is now properly protected, thus mining is forbidden. So what if our region drew inspiration from that word? Yes, welcome to the Mazrock region. And our journey through Mazrock begins with one of its most important Pokémon species. Yellowstone is famous for many things: towering forests, vast herds of wildlife, being the first national park in the world, waterfalls, but above all, it's its geothermal power. The entire landscape of Yellowstone itself sits atop an ancient and massive caldera, the bowl-shaped top of a volcano. Because of that, the underground here is hot enough that pockets of underground water begin to release steam and build pressure, which builds and builds until suddenly it erupts skyward as a geyser. Dotting the landscape, there are also countless springs, tiny tunnels, and even small lava tubes hidden just beneath the surface. Not to mention the many, many burrows of smaller animals. In our Pokémon world, however, in Mazrock, the tunnels are no accident. This is Ghoupher. At first glance, the name may sound like it's just Gopher, but like Pokémon such as Seal, Coughing, and Purloin, the spelling is just wrong enough to make it an official name. This name mixes Gopher with the spelling of ghoul and ghost. For you see, these guys are ground ghost type, in a similar way that Decidueye is part ghost type. It itself is not dead or even ghostly, but it has supernatural ghostly abilities. And here in Mazrock, it uses those powers for a very unusual purpose. The Gopher in this region dig not only for themselves, but for the safety of the entire continent. Their tunnels form an immense underground network stretching across the region and even a bit beyond it. A vast labyrinth threaded with flowing currents of warm water and spiritual energy. A unique phenomenon to this region known by locals as the Soul Stream. Gopher serve as caretakers of this network. They are not only expert diggers armed with shovel-like claws, but they are also psychopomps. In mythology, psychopomps are beings who guide souls to the afterlife. The Valkyries, the Grim Reaper, or Charon. Sharon? The ferrymen of the underworld are all perfect examples. Gopher perform a similar duty. They gather wandering spirits and gently store them in their cheeks, carrying them to and through the tunnel system until they can release them into the soul stream itself. And eventually those souls all travel towards one particular destination: the Grand Prismatic Spring. In the real Yellowstone, this spring glows with vibrant colors thanks to heat-loving bacteria. But here in Mazrock, these colors are something else entirely. They are the visible manifestation of spirit energy collecting here in bulk. For what purpose, though? We'll have to wait and see. After finishing its work maintaining the tunnels for the day, a Gopher begins the long journey home. But parts of its tunnels have flooded, as they often do. And so, Gopher have learned to travel through the soul stream itself. By tapping into the currents of spiritual energy, they can flow through the tunnels like ghosts, moving swiftly through the water and stone alike, not even needing to breathe or have a heartbeat while doing so, just as long as they stay connected. Eventually, this one reaches its home, which is more than just a burrow. Because it's a barrow, a word that can mean both a mound of dirt akin to a gopher or molehill, but also it refers to ancient burial sites. And in this burial home are its young, several tiny babaro. Their name blends barrow, baby, and the Shoshone word babunai, meaning mole. Unlike their evolved form, babaro are pure ground-type Pokémon, and with their parents gone for long hours maintaining the Soul Stream tunnels, these little ones must store food and water inside their stretchy cheeks to survive the day, akin to the pocket gophers this line pulls most of their inspiration from. That constant stretching of their huge pockets even allows them to hold their breath for long periods of time just in case their tunnels or homes flood, an unfortunately not uncommon occurrence, and typically not all of them survive. However, thankfully, in being right up against it, their energies are quickly absorbed by the Soul Stream. The fuzzy tufts atop their heads resemble the horns of the extinct horned gopher, which once lived across the plains of North America. Their strange body shape serves another purpose as well. Sometimes babaro accidentally swallow stray spirits. When that happens, their bodies vent the excess energy like a tiny geyser erupting from the top of their heads. In fact, their burrows often become real geysers when the pressure of the Soul Stream beneath them grows too strong. After all, natural geysers often form mounds that look remarkably similar to gopher hills. And when that pressure finally releases, spirit energy surges upwards through the water and bursts into the sky. In Maz Rock, geysers are never just bursts of hot water. They are spirits finally moving on, having fulfilled their duty. What duty, though? Even the gopher don't seem to know. Only that their endless digging and tireless guidance of wandering souls is somehow necessary for the fate of the world. In battle, Gopher have high physical attack and speed, as well as the Infiltrator ability. Its rapid, ghostly digging can get it under any Pokémon using barriers, and their signature move, Spirit Plunge. Like Flying Press, it is a dual-type move, ground and ghost, though functions similarly to Dig. When it rockets up from the ground, a small geyser of ghostly energy follows it. This idea of ghostly geysers isn't new. It draws inspiration from beliefs held by many Native American peoples connected to the Yellowstone area. Groups such as the Flathead, Shoshone, Nez Perce, and Crow all traveled through what is now Yellowstone, yet historically they rarely set up long-term residence within it. But it still worked as a neutral area for neighboring nations to meet and trade. It happens to be right at the crossroads of three major groups: the Great Plains, Plateau, and Great Basin Native Americans. Some say that the area's natural beauty made it considered too sacred a place for establishing any sort of permanent residence, and that the geysers were trapped spirits under the earth communicating with those above it. Whether these messages were of acknowledgement, anger, or even intended for humans at all differs from person to person, but personally, I love the idea of geysers being released spirits. Now, let's look at this moose, and this heartfelt message. When I went on my month-long road trip from Oregon to the Great Lakes, we spent several days in Yellowstone just to take it all in, but you know what I missed most while away? Sasha, and also my lovely mattress from this video's sponsor, Helix Sleep. You really don't know what you've got till it's gone. I swear, in that 1 month of hotel hopping, I doubled the number of mattresses I've laid on, and none even compared to the premium quality and feel of my 9-year-old Helix Midnight Lux, which was matched to my wife and I after we took their short online sleep quiz, which makes mattress shopping really easy. They've got a lot of options to fit just about every sleep preference and budget, and the quiz will point you to the best ones for you. But they'll all improve your sleep, as evidenced by their Wesper sleep study, where 82% saw an increase in their deep sleep cycle, an average of 25 more minutes of true deep sleep per night. That's some life-changing mattress technology. Pillow technology has advanced too with their new Comfort Adjust cooling pillow. One pillow, cool to the touch, so your neck and head don't overheat, like that guy would not want to be a Bouffalant. And it's easily adjustable for any level of fill and firmness. Some nights you just need a little bit more support than others, and this is just a zip or two away from more or less firmness. Easy. Pillows, mattresses, mattress toppers, it's all 20% off right now if you click the link in this video's description, thanks to their 4th of July sale. A hot and humid summer is here, so get some bedding that'll keep your head clear. And a big thanks to Helix. Now, let's really look at this moose. Each year, moose and elk migrate into Yellowstone, drawn by its abundant vegetation and the relative safety of the park's protected lands. They are massive herbivores, roaming ancient valleys like quiet gardeners of the wilderness. But here in the Maz Rock region, region. What wanders down from the northern forests is something else entirely. This is Forlush, a grass-type moose Pokémon cloaked in moss, mushrooms, and drifting spores. It moves with the calm dignity of a forest guardian and an ancient steward of the woodland ecosystem. The name Forlush carries several meanings. It evokes the lush forests it helps sustain, but it also hints at something quite a bit more melancholy. A forlorn wanderer, traveling great distances alone. And to other grass-type Pokémon, one that often arrives in times of sadness and death. And then there's the word flush. In mycology, a synchronized wave of mushrooms popping up all at once is called a flush, and Forlush carries an entire forest's worth of mushroom flushes. Its body is littered with fungus, shelves of chicken of the woods, fans of turkey tail, and thousands upon thousands of microscopic spores drifting quietly into the air with each of its steps. Naturally, this gives Forlush access to the spore-based moves in battle, as well as the effect spore ability, but the spores falling from its body serve a purpose far greater than combat. Forlush has spent months traveling across distant forests, collecting fungal species along the way, and when it finally reaches Mazrock, it releases them. In the real world, mushrooms spread their spores across the forest floor to spawn new mushrooms to help break down the fallen trees and decaying plants, and in doing so, they recycle nutrients back into the ecosystem. But in Mazrock, the process does something else as well. It helps to filter and regulate the soul stream. Mushrooms thrive on death. They feed on decay and transform it into new life. And that includes the ghostly decay of our very souls themselves. Here, those same processes help purify the spirit energy flowing through the underground network below. And Forlush's massive antlers and mushroom-covered back even carry fragments of spiritual energy from distant forests, echoes of fallen grass-type Pokémon far beyond the region. In fact, when an old or weary grass-type sees the Forlush slowly approaching, it understands the meaning. Its time has come, and the forest will make use of what remains. Before leaving Mazrock again, Forlush makes sure to shed its large antlers and back mushrooms somewhere close to a gopher barrow for them to easily incorporate them both into their own diet and the soul stream. It's all for the good of the soul stream. In battle, Forlush is fairly straightforward. Imagine a bulkier Sawsbuck equipped with the effect spore ability and the spore-based moves, a patient defender, a causer of status effects, a moose that you probably don't want to pet. Just as death follows life, life follows death. If a large amount of mixed Forlush spores wind up on a particularly tasty-looking decaying log, perhaps one Forlush was sleeping against, it will eventually become this dizzy little fellow, a poison ghost type known as Dizzom. The log it inhabits has become a kind of living tomb, being slowly digested from the inside out by a colony of slime molds and fungi. Yellow spores puff from tiny caps, and from the bark itself, dark, fungal fingers claw their way upwards, like a zombie crawling out of a grave. Dead man's finger mushrooms push through the wood like skeletal hands. No wonder the poor thing looks so confused. It was just born, it's several slime mold and mushroom species, and gosh, do those have a wide variety of effects on the mind. Every time Dizzom stumbles, trips, or bumps clumsily into something like a staggering zombie, it drops even more spores, infecting more logs. It's like a spreading zombie virus, but for trees. And once again, when those spores drift down into the soil, it helps the spirit network of Mazrock. But Dizzom cannot remain small forever. Like a hermit crab abandoning its shell, it eventually outgrows its log and begins searching for a larger one. And when it finally finds the perfectly huge, delicious-looking log, it evolves into Griparious. Ghost-type Pokémon often borrow from imposing-sounding words, Cophagregus, Basculegion, Trevenant. Griparious continues that tradition. Part of its name comes from grip, because once its clawing hands seize hold of something, they rarely let go. But the other inspiration comes from the word gregarious. Many mushrooms grow in tight clusters, called clusters from a single base. But when mushrooms grow together in looser, irregular groups, they're called gregarious. Griparious is exactly that. Multiple species of fungus and slime mold working together in one eerie organism. Shelve mushrooms now sprout from the sides of its log too, forming some natural armor. And fittingly, Griparious often appears in riparian zones, the moisture-rich habitats that form along riverbanks. Here they even occasionally share territory with the Cascadian Gengar line, whose regional form has adapted into ghost and water types. But compared to them, Griparious itself is unpredictable, perhaps even a little nefarious. Its behavior is capricious, impulsive, and prone to sudden mood swings. One moment, it stands perfectly still, just another fallen log in the forest, a zombie doing nothing but existing, standing there, as they often do in zombie media. But as soon as something catches its attention, it lunges forward in an obsessive pursuit, clutching at its target like a zombie chasing prey, reaching all it can. Trainers of Griparious need to take extra care to limit this behavior. Griparius's wide fungal cap resembles the hats of scarecrows and other eerie figures from folklore, but biologically it's inspired by a real fungus, the inky cap mushroom. These mushrooms live all over the world and use a black, ink-like liquid to drip their spores into the soil below. And yet, curiously, despite their ominous appearance, they are actually edible. But with a very important warning, a giant asterisk. If alcohol is consumed within a few days of eating them, the body reacts violently, causing severe poisoning symptoms that can resemble an extreme hangover, to a point where it can lead to a heart attack. Historically, this effect was even used as a treatment for alcoholism, a rather aggressive one.
Hey bud, here's a pill to cure your alcoholism. It makes it so if you drink again, you'll die. And hey, if you do, you won't have to worry about your alcoholism anymore.
Naturally, this strange property inspired Griparius's signature move, Heal Shock, a poison-type attack that punishes its opponent's recovery. If the opponent healed during this or the previous turn, Heal Shock reverses that healing and deals a tiny bit of additional damage. Otherwise, it just does that tiny bit of damage, a power 10 move. Because sometimes the very thing meant to cure you can become the poison instead. It is a shock to your system. The dose makes the poison. The unique soul stream of Mazrock does not only exist beneath the ground, however. In small, almost imperceptible currents, it flows through the air as well. High in the mountains, the terrain becomes too steep and rocky for Ghoupher to maintain their underground tunnels. The soil is thin, the stone is unyielding, and yet the spirits of the land must still travel. So here, nature has found another solution. Across the high elevations, small fires quietly burn. Campfire-sized blazes that consume fallen branches, old brush, and sometimes droppings and the remains of the dead. As the smoke rises, something curious happens. The spirit energy released from the burning matter drifts upward, and somehow, rather than simply flowing vertically forever, it begins to flow towards the prismatic pools, where it rejoins the soul stream below. Yet, of course, fires don't start themselves. The usual culprits here are these two Pokémon, Snaplet and Clickhinder, a bug and fire type evolutionary line inspired by Flint and Steel and the familiar Sparkwheel Lighter. But their biology comes from click beetles. These insects possess a unique ability. Thanks to this area of their bodies, they are able to store mechanical tension within their bodies and suddenly release it with a sharp snap. Similar to human finger snapping, except it's their entire body, and it causes them to launch themselves violently into the air. It's loud enough to startle predators, and powerful enough to flip them upright if they get stuck on their backs. A related inspiration comes from the cracking grasshopper, which produces loud cracking sounds by snapping its wings together in mid-air. Doing so makes it look like it's double jumping infinitely. But for our Pokémon, these loud snaps echo through the valley and create sparks, thus lighting small fires through the higher elevations. Their head shapes resemble a Clickbeetle's own head flipped upside down. And rather than grasshopper wings, Clickinder's flight is akin to a wingsuit. People love jumping from high mountains in beautiful areas like this. While wearing the wingsuit, I should specify. And the circular structure on Clickinder's body? That's the spark wheel of a lighter, a tiny biological ignition system. Together, these little insects act as the accidental fire starters of Mazrock's highlands, igniting the small blazes that help carry wandering spirits skyward. Back down in the valleys, however, the land feels very different. Here, you might spot familiar Pokémon living peacefully. Pawmot, Lediba, Squavit, Stantler, and the occasional Ursaring live here. And across the plains moves the largest herd of Bouffalant on the entire planet. American bison are magnificent animals, icons of the North American plains, massive, powerful, and deeply woven into the history of this continent. In fact, in an earlier video about Bouffalant, I argued that these creatures might represent the American story even better than the bald eagle, not only because of the bison's ecological importance, but because of the cultural history surrounding it, particularly its connections to Native American communities, and in the case of the Pokémon, to African American culture as well. And because these animals are so iconic of Wyoming, where most of Yellowstone is, it felt right to finally give Bouffalant an evolution, one that references these things as well. So, within each subherd, only one Bouffalant is allowed to evolve: the leader. If another attempts to evolve, it must challenge the current leader in combat. Should it win, it takes command of the herd. Should it lose, it is exiled, forced to wander the plains alone, or at least distant from the main herd, much like the social hierarchies seen in real bison. But upon that evolution, it becomes a Bouffalant. It is larger, heavier, stricter, and now a normal and ground-type Pokémon. Its name, like its overall design, remains familiar. This is still unmistakably a Bouffalant, but several details reveal its deeper ancestry and power. Its massive shoulder hump is exaggerated, resembling that of the extinct bison antiquus, one of the largest bison species to ever roam North America, and the horned spikes on its back somewhat resembles a traditional weapon of many Native American cultures, the gunstock war club. Even its tail echoes that distinctive shape, but perhaps the most striking feature lies, again, in its large boof. Parts of Bouffalant's iconic afro are now bound and matted into thick locks, hardened with red clay. Dreadlocks or locks have deep cultural roots in many parts of the world, including the Americas, but the practice of coating them with red clay is especially associated with communities in places like Ethiopia, Namibia, and Kenya. If Bouffalant was the flashy black disco dancer of the 1970s, Bouffalant feels like someone rediscovering their ancestral roots. And now, as a herd leader, Bouffalant rarely rest. Their lives are spent keeping watch and defending their herds against the dangers that exist beyond Mazrock's borders. But when their great migrations finally bring them back to this region, they can finally rest a little bit. A part of this rest comes from the fact that if a Bouffalant had fallen during the journey, Bouffalant would do its best to carry them here, where it can return its energy to the soul stream. Like their real-world counterparts, these Pokémon are among the largest land animals on the continent. Their presence shapes the environment itself. Their movements churn the soil, their grazing spreads seeds, and even their droppings return nutrients to the earth. Everything they do sustains the ecosystem, and ultimately, here, sustains the soul stream. Sometimes, when a Bouffalant feels like its life is nearing its end, it chooses not to continue the migration. Instead, it remains here in Mazrock, even as the rest of the herd moves on, as if the land itself were finally calling it home. Because truly, it is, in a way. And Bouffalant are not the only Pokémon drawn to Mazrock in their final moments. Many species from the surrounding regions make their journey here as well, guided by something they do not fully understand, a quiet pull, a distant beckoning through a song sung in their minds. Perhaps it is the radiant waters of the grand prismatic pools, shimmering with spirit energy, or perhaps something or someone has told them to come here. Someone less than kind. Across the countless tales of Native Americans from the entire continent, there are themes and figures that pop up again and again, and one such figure is Coyote, sometimes pronounced Coyote. Coyote is a trickster spirit, a liar, a cheat, infamous for his schemes. Sometimes these schemes help others, but more often, Coyote is deceiving others for personal gain. And here in the Mozrock region, we have this scoundrel, a Houndrel. A dark-type canine Pokemon that fills a role not unlike Purloin, a sneaky opportunist thriving on mischief and manipulation. Houndrel rarely hunts, honestly. Instead, it steals food or tricks other Pokemon into leaving the safety of their homes. When caught in the act by someone wiser, however, they get called out for being dishonest, and Houndrel cowardly flees, which of course causes its tail to be the most frequent target of attacks towards it. Thus, its tail having patchy fur and broken angles. But, akin to Skarmory's metallic wings growing strong through constant damage, over time, Houndrel's tail begins to grow strong, capable of moves like Iron Tail, Tail Slap, and even Dragon Tail. Look closely though, and you might notice something even stranger. It's polydactyl. Houndrel has thumbs. All the easier to manipulate objects and perform surprisingly complex gestures with, my dear. A useful trait for a Pokemon that specializes in trickery. Its pale coat and scruffy fur also help it blend into its preferred environment, because although Houndrel can be found in Mozrock, it is far more common around it. The dry scrublands, badlands, and deserts to the south and east of here are where these crafty Pokemon wander and search for their next victims. Houndrel are master communicators, charismatic scam artists, and unsuspecting Pokemon often fall for their elaborate lies. They whisper promises of wisdom, safety, and salvation. "I know a Pokemon who can solve all your problems," they say. "A teacher, a guru, someone who understands dreams and knows where you can find endless food and clean water. Your wishes will come true. And if you want to meet them, you'll have to travel to Mozrock. Bring your family, bring everyone, because this wise guru is waiting in a cave in the mountains." However, this guru is actually something else entirely. The rare evolution of Houndrel, a Pokemon known as Koizen. The name comes from the word cousin, meaning to deceive or trick someone out of something, while also being a mix of Coyote and Zen. Koizen appears almost serene, floating peacefully in mid-air with eyes half closed in quiet meditation. To a weary traveler having just entered the cave, it looks like an enlightened psychic sage, but bring it out into the light and the illusion collapses. The mono-dark-type Koizen aren't floating at all. They're balancing on a powerful, bushy tail hidden by the darkness. This act is pure theater, a performance meant to lure desperate Pokemon closer. They bite down on their tongues to suppress the manic laughter threatening to escape their mouths, because now, in this cave, its prey, an entire family of Mincino in this case, has no possibility of escape. They are dinner. And when the deed is done, their spirits drift away, flowing down into the vast underground network of the Soul Stream. Energy gathered from far beyond Mozrock, brought here through the treacherous schemes of these trickster Pokemon. Perhaps unknown to them, they too are helpful. More souls blasting off into the sky, having finished their duty. But the question remains, what is this duty? Why does the land of Mozrock need so many souls, so much ghostly spirit energy flowing endlessly through the underground in a cage-like fashion? Well, let's finally go to the Grand Prismatic Spring. Here, the heated waters of the Soul Stream gather in a reservoir filled with spirit energy, purified by the mushrooms of the forest and guided by countless Pokemon across the region. And here, it is maintained by a single guardian, a tiny, mythical spirit Pokemon, Buhari. The name comes from the Shoshone word puha, meaning spiritual power, especially in the context of healing, and aria, a musical term for a solo singing voice, because this little fairy and water-type Pokemon is both a healer and a singer. In the real Grand Prismatic Spring, the vivid colors come from enormous mats of microscopic life. All that ground surrounding the water, that isn't dirt at all. It's living colonies of thermophilic bacteria, organisms that thrive on extreme heat. Their colors shift depending on the balance of chlorophyll and carotenoids in their cells, as well as the temperature of the water beneath them. In Mazrock, Puhari embodies those bacteria. Her jelly-like limbs echo the fluid shapes of microbial colonies. Her shape carries the structure of cyanobacteria chains, and most important are her braids. The colors mirror the brilliant rings of the prismatic spring itself, and they also reference something deeply meaningful across many Native American cultures. To many, braids symbolize the sacred connection to the earth, as well as the balance of mind, body, and spirit, while the act of braiding represents community and resilience. A single strand of hair is fragile, but braided together, those strands become strong. In much the same way, individual bacteria are among the smallest living organisms on Earth, yet together, by the trillions, they create vast living structures visible from space. And here in Mazrock, that same principle powers the Soul Stream, which takes an entire community of Pokémon to maintain. And this pool is the zenith of the entire system. The lock, in a way? Every spirit gathered from across the region flows here, where Puhari acts as its maintainer and goes wherever she is needed. When traveling within the Soul Stream itself, Puhari can become completely ethereal, slipping into the currents of spirit energy and emerging anywhere along the network instantaneously. Sometimes she uses this power to play harmless pranks on the locals. She is a fae after all, but more often, her work is far more delicate. With surgical precision, her gloved, jelly-like limbs reach into the currents and remove blockages, or even redirect spiritual flow through gesture and song to keep the entire system functioning. For centuries now, sightings of this mythical Pokemon have been almost non-existent, but recently that has changed. In the past few weeks alone, sightings of Puhari have increased dramatically. She has been appearing across the region, tending to more and more disturbances within the Soul Stream, which, of course, raises a troubling question. Is something wrong? And more importantly, what exactly is the Soul Stream trying to do, or trying to contain? Oh dear, we have our answer, and it's not a good one. The prismatic spring may be the heart of the system, the battery, but the lake is where its true purpose lies, and something beneath it is waking up. The water of Yellowstone Lake, which we'll call Lake Mazrock, is another key part of the Soul Stream, the source of much of its water. Far deeper than even the floor of the lake, something ancient sleeps. A being that has not risen since the primordial era when the continents themselves were still forming. In that distant age, legendary Pokémon shaped the world. Primal Groudon raised the continents. Regigigas moved the land itself. Heatran governed the fires of the planet's crust. But little-known legends say there was another. Something now buried deep beneath what would one day become Mazrock. The region around Yellowstone is a dinosaur fossil hotspot, especially fossils of ceratopsians like Triceratops, and Yellowstone Lake has always carried stranger legends as well. The usual kinds of cryptids, of course. The last living dinosaur supposedly lived there, Bigfoot bathes in it from time to time, but more specific to this lake are stories of phantom lights drifting across the water, and mysterious music echoing from the lake's depths. In Mazrock, those legends take on a different meaning. Ghost-type Pokémon flourish along the lake's shores, especially around the time of the full moon. They are drawn here not just because of the Soul Stream activity, but because of another source of ghostly energy eerily working its way up through the water between the cracks of the Soul Stream. This is often when Puhari sings on the lake's surface, calming those ghostly disturbances and making sure the Soul Stream maintains its power over them. Whatever is trapped down there is leaking heated ghost energy, and because Ghost is weak to Ghost, a strong cage-like network ought to keep whatever's down there asleep. But why is all of this necessary? Why not let it wake up? Why does the entire region revolve around gathering and directing spirit energy here? Well, the answer lies in the same reason Yellowstone itself exists. The land beneath this park is not ordinary, because Yellowstone is not just a volcano. It is a super volcano. This is what a caldera on top of a volcano typically looks like. You can comfortably see the whole thing while standing on its edge, but Yellowstone's caldera is so massive you need a satellite to see it. This volcano last erupted roughly 630,000 years ago, and in recent times, speculation has persisted that one day, possibly soon, it might erupt again. Many sensational headlines claim it's overdue, even. And because of the sheer volume of volcanic material underneath it, if such an eruption were to happen, the consequences would be catastrophic. Not quite the end of the world bad, but certainly the end of civilization as we know it. And in Mazrock, the threat beneath the ground isn't just molten rock. Sleeping deep inside the caldera itself lies a legendary Pokémon, Caldrakon, a colossal dragon and fire-type beast. Its body resembles a massive ceratopsian, horned like a triceratops, yet draconic in scale. A living caldera, a volcano given form. For millennia, the Soul Stream has acted as its prison. The combined spiritual energy of the entire region, guided by Puhari and maintained by countless Pokémon, keeps this creature dormant. But that prison is beginning to weaken, because Caldrakon possesses a terrifying power, its signature ability, Infernal Spirit. Whenever it uses a Ghost-type move, its secondary typing shifts from Fire to Ghost, and whenever it uses a Fire-type move, it becomes Fire once again. A horrifyingly huge creature, constantly oscillating between flame and spirit, almost as if it possessed 3 types at once. No wonder there's so much geothermal activity here. For hundreds of thousands of years, its energy cycles have been slowly intensifying, shaping the land above. Even the outline of the lake now eerily resembles the head of the beast sleeping below. And this cycle has been accelerating. Soon, Caldrakon will awaken, and when it does, the eruption that it would soon summon could devastate the entire continent. Fortunately, there is still hope, because in this story, a legendary trainer has arrived. You. With Puhari's guidance and the help of the Soul Stream's many caretakers, you may be able to confront Caldrakon in the brief window after it awakens, capture it, calm it, and prevent the eruption before it reaches its full strength. Because once caught, the world-ending power Caldrakon has been gathering for millions of years is reduced to the level of a typical legendary Pokémon, and the disaster is averted. Which raises one final question. Was it a coincidence that you arrived in Mazrock now, or was it something else? Perhaps a quiet call carried through the currents of spirit energy, a whisper rising from the prismatic spring, a message from Puhari herself, singing out for a hero, just in the nick of time. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more in-depth Pokemon design knowledge. Check out Geodude's socials, the artist I commissioned to bring these ideas to life. Check out our sponsor to help us make more videos like these. Thank you so much to all of our patrons and YouTube members, and until next time, never stop using your noggin.